Oh my, oh no, have you heard? There's going to be a trade war with China. Trump's jingoistic, immature, pseudo-macho saber-rattling has woken a sleeping giant, the world's only true superpower, and they're coming for us, militarily and economically. Calm down, people. Calm down. Stand by for some mental Xanax. Deep breaths. Cue the intro.
China versus America, right? A little bit of a provocative title, but you probably saw some of the headlines recently. It was all over Drudge for a little while, and I think it's still on a sidebar down on the not it's down in the main body of Drudge right now. Trade war with China. China sending its aircraft carrier to the South China Sea. China is the world's other superpower. America's great rival. Let's talk for a minute, man. The mainstream media wants panic. They want America to have a rival for some reason, a counterweight to our power. China ain't it. Here's why you don't have to worry about trade war with China. Why you don't have to worry about regular war with China. You don't have to worry about China. Okay, so first things first. Let's deal with the trade war. Is the big thing everyone's kind of talking about right now. Oh, we're gonna have a trade war with China. The Dow's dropping 500 points on worries of a trade war with China. I'm raising the flag on this one, man. No, ain't happening. I think most people with any sense know it's not happening, and there's a bunch of reasons why, and we'll talk about the war thing in a minute. China's supposed rising military might. Yeah, it's rising. sort of like a. Well, anyway, we'll talk about it in a second. But the trade war stand front. China cannot afford a trade war with America. Now, there's a couple of things people point at to say they can, and I'll talk about those in just a second. They talk about the Chinese holding American debt or bonds, and there was something else they like to talk about. Oh, I don't remember what it is. Well, it'll probably come up in the course of this conversation. But China cannot afford a trade war with America. China is in a really precarious place right now in its history. Their economy's been sputtering for years. They're keeping it propped up by just printing money. The Chinese people are an amazing people. They've got this unbroken history going back like 5,000 years. They can survive anything and everything. They've been able to support this really crazy government for thousands of years. Like, there's no difference between the Communist Party of today and the emperors of years past. It's this giant bloated bureaucracy that is pretty much exists solely to sort of regulate itself, because the Chinese people don't really need regulation. They're kind of self-regulating. Like I said, they're pretty neat people, but no difference in the Chinese government of today and the Chinese government of thousands of years. But they've got this economic system where they're trying to push the Chinese economy from being the kind of economy it's been for thousands of years, which is not a bad thing. Look at how stable it's been. No one else can go back and say, hey, we've been here for 5,000 years, in pretty much the same form. That's pretty impressive. But they're trying to go from an agricultural rural economy to they think they got themselves an export economy. They don't. Their exports are just, well, anyway, we'll talk about it in a second. Now they're trying to get themselves to a consumer-driven service economy like they think we have. So here's what the Chinese backers say, the people who think China's a threat. They say they're the world's second biggest economy. Yeah, by GDP, by gross domestic product. They're the world's most populous country, though. They're like 74th on the list of GDP to per capita ratio. If you took their economy and divided it by the number of people they have, they're 74th down on the list in a world with, I think there's like 300 countries technically worldwide. 74th down on that GDP to hyper-capitalist is pretty far down. Then people will say, oh, they have all this debt. They own all this American debt. They can just sell our bonds. They own about 8% of our foreign debt, of our debt, which is not insubstantial, but it ain't going to kill us. If they dumped all of our bonds all at once, first off, the repercussions for them would be catastrophic. There would be kind of all sorts of things going on for them too with that. It would hurt, but it wouldn't kill us. And all to do is the Federal Reserve would print a bunch more money. We'd buy back these bonds. It wouldn't. That in and of itself, my understanding is it wouldn't sink us. Maybe kickstart a recession or something, but not really. I mean, the only thing it would really do is make government borrowing costs higher, supposedly, but not really, because, I mean, that's all this one great big sham. The Federal Reserve buys the vast majority of our debt. It's all this paper merry-go-round. You know, they'll just print more, or I don't know. They'll change this little number somewhere. China jumping 8% of our total bonds is nothing. However, the official numbers say that we're 18% of their exports, which is, you know, exports is what drives their economy right now. They can't afford to lose 18% of their exports in some kind of crazy trade war. I am convinced it's way higher than that. This is one of the things about China. You cannot trust any official numbers that come out of China. They are all a blithering lie. I mean, there's just not one thing they say about their numbers that are correct. Some people like talking about the petro yuan right now, that China's going to stop buying oil in the dollar. No, it ain't happening. Sorry. Because all of China's numbers are just a bold-faced lie. You know, China says they're going to back this oil-backed yuan with gold, and so that you can turn this yuan in for gold. China constantly overstates the Chinese government constantly overstates the amount of these precious metals they own. They account for these metals like 3 and 4 times. You know, oh, we own, you know, X amount of gold, and then they'll just sell the same bunch of gold like 5 or 6 different times. You know, or allocate it to 5 or 6 different reasons. The same gold. They do this with everything. So a gold-backed yuan is going to have everyone, you know, a little leery anyway. The only people who are going to do any of this trading in this petro yuan is Russia and Iran, and it's just not going to be that big of a deal. So trade war with China, no biggie. So there's a big thing with China why they're not a problem too, and we'll talk about it in just a minute. Militarily, China is, I'm sorry guys, there's no way to say this, China's a joke militarily. Let's just talk about a few things. All right, China has an aircraft carrier, one aircraft carrier. We have 7, but even that doesn't tell the whole story, because the Chinese aircraft carrier is an abandoned Soviet aircraft carrier that was being built in '89 when the wall fell, the Berlin Wall fell, and it got abandoned in the Ukraine, and the Ukraine sold it to China, and so China has this Russian aircraft carrier. But even that doesn't tell the whole story, because in 1989, Russia couldn't land planes on aircraft carriers yet, not jets. It wasn't until I think 1998 that Russia first landed a modern fighter jet on an aircraft carrier. So this aircraft carrier that China got from Russia through Ukraine literally has a ski jump on the front. I mean, it's like the kind of ramp you made as a kid to jump your bicycle off of. It doesn't have a catapult. The jets they have that can fly off of it is called their Type J-15. It is a blatant bad copy of a Russian design, the Su-33, which itself was just barely an enlargement of the Su-27. How's that for some informational density roll? Woo! Anyway, this plane is a joke. The Su-33, only like 35 of them were ever produced in Russia. As far as they know, China's only ever been able to produce 15 of them. The problem with this this J-15 is it is so light. It has to be so light to take off of this aircraft carrier deck that it can't carry hardly any fuel and very small amounts of armaments when it's flown off of the aircraft carrier. The other problem is that they don't have any capability to resupply the air, to refuel the airplanes in the air from the aircraft carrier. So they don't have any. If they have to refuel the aircraft while they're in the air, those assets have to come from the mainland. That's a big deal for lots of reasons. We won't go into it all here, but the upshot of it is this aircraft carrier is toothless. In fact, it's not even technically even in active duty. It's actually a training aircraft carrier where they're trying to learn how to use an aircraft carrier. My point of all this is that China is not a threat to America militarily. China has 50 ICBMs. I haven't seen these numbers lately. The last time I saw anything, we were trying to cut our nuclear-tipped ICBMs back to 1,400. Like, I think we had been up near 5,000 or something at the height. I'm pulling that number out of my memory, so I'd be wrong. But at one point, we were like trying to come up with ways so we could cut back to 1,500. They've got 50 total. They've got some submarines. They're all like 50-year-old Soviet designs, barely updated type stuff. China does have the largest military in the world, but it's largely a militia. Nothing wrong with that. I'm big on the militia, but it's not an offensive force. It's a defensive force. China just isn't a military threat. Certainly not to America. They're not a military threat to Taiwan. You know, they haven't been able to get Taiwan in line for all these years. They weren't a military threat to Hong Kong. You know, the British just gave Hong Kong back to China, just kind of because they felt embarrassed about the whole colonial thing. China's just not a big deal. I know I said this exact same thing about North Korea. You got to remember, North Korea is nothing more but a province of China. China's just not a threat. And there's another thing. No one talks about China about a whole lot. I'm sorry, Mariah's arms are getting tired. We got to hurry up. China has a demographics problem that is debilitating. China's facing a demographics collapse of their population, almost unprecedented anywhere else in the world, because for decades now, China has had a one-child policy, which made it very, very expensive and hard for families to have more than one child. That right there cuts your population in half. I mean, forget anything else. That cuts your population in half, right? The other problem they had, and a lot of you have heard about this, is that since people could only have one child, they really valued boys. So they aborted girl babies and only had boy babies. They have this massive gender disparity between men and women, and that's going to further drive their population down. So China's got some major problems. The Communist Party just, you know, let the Premier Jinping Pong, I can't remember his name, be a dictator for life, which I haven't had in a few years. Economy's on shaky ground. All this stuff's going on. China cannot afford anything upsetting the apple cart. The whole reason North Korea is not talking nice now, and if you've listened to the news, North Korea is like just being a model citizen right now, and there's some direct talks going on with America, and they're backing way down and playing nice. It's because China played its game of chicken, and Trump didn't blink, and China's had to back down, and North Korea is kind of out there in the wind right now, realizing they don't have anyone backing them up, and North Korea's in a real hard place because they are, like I said, they're pretty much just like a semi-autonomous province of China. But China can't do much for them right now. It's some fun stuff going on over there. But don't worry about China. China's not a problem. When America falls, we will fall from within. Empires always fall from within. There's no one out there who can challenge us militarily or economically from the outside. We're just going to weaken and collapse because we're bored and we don't have a will to live anymore. So there you go, man. Appreciate you. Thank you. Oh, look at all this junk. Oh! Made in China. Huh. What do we got here? Made in China. Made in China. Look, a rice cooker. Made in China. Made in China. Made in America. Hoorah! Or death kill. Yut!